Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today not to discuss refinement or sophistication, but rather the art of becoming savage. And what is this savage we speak of? It is not the caricature of barbarism or brutality often painted by society, but the raw, unfiltered essence of what it means to truly live. In this world of polished appearances and curated identities, we have been led astray from our nature. We have been taught to walk neatly along paths paved by others, suppressing the wild, untamed spirit that pulses within us. But let me ask you, who paved that road? And why do we follow it? To become a savage is to reclaim your primal instinct. It is to peel away the layers of pretense and conditioning, to hear the whisper of your soul amidst the noise of the world. It is not chaos, it is clarity. It is recognizing that the deepest truths cannot be read from books or written on screens. They are carved into the earth, carried by the wind, and found in the rhythm of your beating heart. But to walk this path, you must first break the illusion of control. Society tells us that order is strength and certainty is power. Yet life itself defies these constructs. The greatest revelations arise not from gripping tightly to what we know, but from surrendering to the vast unknown. To become a savage is to live with fierce authenticity. It is to laugh loudly, cry deeply, and love with abandon. It is to stand in the face of fear and declare, I am here. I am real. A savage does not hide from the storm as savage dances in the rain, knowing that both the tempest and the sun are part of the same eternal cycle. Finally, to become a savage is to rediscover your place in the dance of the universe. You are not separate from nature, you are nature. The same forces that guide the rivers, the stars, and the winds pulse through your veins. You are both hunter and hunted, creator and destroyer, a fleeting moment and an eternal truth. So, my friends, I invite you to let go of the chains that bind you to convention. Embrace the raw, unfiltered beauty of existence. Tear down the walls of what you have been told to be and discover the boundless expanse of who you truly are. Become a savage not in rage, but in wonder. Not in destruction, but in creation. Not in fear, but in love. Thank you. The essence of reclaiming the primal instinct lies in understanding that the raw, untamed aspects of our nature are not flaws, but intrinsic components of what makes us human. In a world obsessed with order and conformity, we have distanced ourselves from these instincts, labeling them as primitive, uncivilized, or undesirable. Yet these very instincts are the foundation of our vitality, creativity, and connection to the world around us. To reclaim the primal instinct is not to regress to a savage state in the sense of brutality or chaos, rather. It is to return to the essence of being, to reconnect with the forces that pulse through us and bind us to the earth, the universe, and each other. We live in a time where we are bombarded with rules, expectations, and structures designed to tame us. From the moment we are born, we are placed into systems that teach us how to behave, what to think, and how to perceive the world. We are taught to sit still, to follow instructions, to prioritize rationality over emotion, and to suppress impulses that are deemed unacceptable. But in doing so, we lose a crucial part of ourselves. We lose touch with the part of us that acts not out of calculation, but from instinct, the part that feels deeply and moves authentically, without needing to justify itself to the world. The primal instinct is not chaotic, it is deeply intuitive. It is the voice within you that knows when something feels right or wrong, even when there is no logical explanation. It is the force that pulls you toward beauty, love, and wonder, and the same force that urges you to recoil from danger or dishonesty. Animals live by their instincts, guided by an innate wisdom that requires no manuals or doctrines. As humans, we possess this same wisdom, but we bury it under layers of intellect and social conditioning. Reclaiming the primal instinct requires a deliberate unlearning. It means letting go of the need to overanalyze every situation and rediscovering the courage to trust your gut. For centuries, we have been conditioned to believe that intellect is superior to intuition, that logic must always reign supreme over feeling. While reason has its place, the primal instinct operates on a different plane, one that is deeply connected to the rhythms of the natural world. This instinct is not random or reckless. It is a finely tuned mechanism shaped by millions of years of evolution. It is the reason our ancestors survived, thrived, and adapted to the harshest conditions. It is what allows us to sense danger before it strikes or feel drawn to paths that lead to growth and fulfillment. Modern life, however, dulls this connection. We are surrounded by artificial environments that numb our senses and distract us from the signals our bodies and minds are constantly sending. Bright screens, crowded schedules, and ceaseless noise drown out the quiet wisdom of our inner selves. Even our language reflects this disconnection. We speak of taming emotions, controlling desires, and overcoming instincts as if they are enemies to be defeated rather than allies to be embraced. To reclaim the primal instinct, one must step outside the artificial constructs that dominate daily life. This does not necessarily mean abandoning modernity, but rather finding moments to reconnect with the natural world and with oneself. It is in the stillness of a forest, the roar of the ocean, or the vast expanse of the night sky that we can begin to hear the voice of our primal selves again. These moments remind us that we are not separate from nature, but part of it. The same energy that moves the tides and stirs the wind flows through our veins. This process also involves reclaiming our physicality. The primal instinct is not confined to the mind, it resides in the body as well. Movement, breath, and sensation are all expressions of this instinct. When we run, dance, or even stand still and feel the ground beneath our feet, we tap into a deep reservoir of power and presence. Our ancestors moved through the world with an awareness of their surroundings that modern humans often lack. They did not need maps or apps to navigate. They felt the direction of the wind, watched the stars, and trusted their bodies to guide them. By rediscovering this connection to our physical selves, we also reconnect with the primal instincts that have been silenced by sedentary, screen-dominated lives. Reclaiming the primal instinct also means embracing emotions in their raw, unfiltered forms. Anger, joy, fear, love, these are not weaknesses to be hidden, but signals to be understood and honored. Too often we suppress emotions because they make others uncomfortable, or because we fear losing control. But emotions are the language of the primal self, a way for the body and mind to communicate what words cannot. By allowing ourselves to feel deeply and authentically, we give voice to the parts of us that have been ignored for far too long. Ultimately, to reclaim the primal instinct is to remember who we are beneath the layers of conditioning and conformity. It is to stand in the fullness of our humanity, unashamed of our desires, our fears, and our dreams. It is not a rejection of progress or civilization, but a call to balance, an invitation to live in harmony with the primal forces that have always guided us, even when we were too distracted to notice. This journey is not easy, for it requires us to confront parts of ourselves we have been taught to fear or deny. But in doing so, we find a profound sense of freedom, connection, and authenticity that no amount of external validation can replicate. Taming the mind by unleashing it is a paradox that cuts to the core of our struggle with thought and consciousness. From an early age, we are taught to control our minds, to discipline our thoughts, and to silence the cacophony within. We are told that a calm and orderly mind is the hallmark of wisdom. Yet this approach often leaves us entangled in the very chaos we seek to escape. The harder we try to impose control, the more elusive peace becomes. The mind, like a wild river, cannot be tamed by damming its flow. It must be understood, embraced, and allowed to move freely. In this surrender lies the true taming, a paradoxical mastery that emerges when we cease to wrestle with our thoughts and instead dance with them. The mind is a restless creature forever in motion, leaping from one idea to another, conjuring fears, memories, and dreams with relentless energy. We often perceive this restlessness as a problem, a flaw in our design that must be corrected. But what if this motion is not a defect, but an inherent quality of consciousness itself? The mind's movement is not random chaos, but a reflection of its dynamic nature, a vital force that mirrors the ceaseless flow of life. To unleash the mind is to stop resisting its nature, to let it roam and explore without judgment or interference. In doing so, we find that the mind, when freed, often leads us to clarity rather than confusion. This does not mean succumbing to every whim or impulse of thought. Unleashing the mind is not the same as losing oneself in it. It is about recognizing that thoughts are not enemies to be vanquished or masters to obey, but companions on the journey of being. When we allow thoughts to flow without clinging to them or pushing them away, we begin to see them for what they truly are: fleeting patterns of energy that arise and dissolve like waves on the surface of the ocean. This realization shifts our relationship with the mind. Instead of trying to control it, we learn to observe it, to witness its movements with curiosity and detachment. In this state of witnessing, the mind becomes less of a battleground and more of a playground. Ideas and emotions, once feared or repressed, are given space to unfold and express themselves. The act of letting thoughts come and go without resistance, creates a sense of spaciousness within. This spaciousness is not emptiness, but a fertile ground where insights and inspirations can arise. When the mind is unleashed, it is no longer constrained by the rigid structures of logic and control. It becomes free to make connections, to imagine, and to create in ways that are impossible when it is confined. One might argue that such freedom could lead to disorder, that an untamed mind would spiral into madness or despair. Yet experience shows otherwise. It is not the unleashed mind that causes suffering, but the resisted one. The pain of mental chaos often stems from our attempts to fight it, to impose stillness where there is motion, or to force coherence where there is none. When we stop resisting and start flowing with the mind, its energy becomes less destructive and more constructive. The unleashed mind is like a river that, once freed from obstructions, finds its natural course, carving paths and nourishing the landscapes it touches. Unleashing the mind also requires a shift in our understanding of control. Control, as we often conceive it, is rigid and oppositional. It seeks to dominate and suppress, to hold the mind in check by sheer force of will. This approach is not only exhausting but ultimately futile. The mind, like water, cannot be grasped or contained without consequence. True control is not about imposing willpower, but about cultivating awareness. When we observe the mind without trying to change it, we begin to understand its patterns, its rhythms, and its needs. This understanding allows us to guide the mind gently, like a shepherd guiding a flock, rather than forcing it into submission. Another key aspect of unleashing the mind is embracing the unknown. The mind often fears uncertainty, clinging to the familiar and the predictable as a means of self-preservation. Yet life itself is uncertain, a vast expanse of possibility that defies our attempts to categorize and control it. By unleashing the mind, we allow it to venture into the unknown, to explore uncharted territories without the constraints of preconceived notions or expectations. In these explorations, we discover not only new ideas, but also new dimensions of ourselves. The unleashed mind is also deeply connected to intuition, that subtle yet powerful sense that often operates beneath the surface of conscious thought. Intuition arises not from analysis, but from a deeper knowing, a synthesis of experience, perception, and instinct. When we stop trying to force the mind into linear pathways, we open ourselves to the wisdom of intuition. This wisdom is not logical in the conventional sense, but it is profoundly insightful, guiding us toward choices and actions that resonate with our true nature. To unleash the mind is also to embrace its contradictions. The mind is a paradoxical entity, capable of great logic and profound irrationality, of constructing worlds and dismantling them in the same breath. Instead of fearing these contradictions, we can learn to celebrate them, to see them as expressions of the mind's vast and multifaceted nature. In this celebration, we find a sense of freedom, a liberation from the need to make the mind conform to a singular ideal or narrative. Ultimately, the process of taming the mind by unleashing it is not about achieving a fixed state of calm or control. It is about learning to flow with the mind's energy, to ride its currents rather than fight against them. This dynamic relationship with the mind allows us to experience its full potential, not as a burden, but as a source of creativity, insight, and connection. Through this process, we come to understand that the mind's true power lies not in its ability to be tamed, but in its ability to move freely and authentically, reflecting the boundless nature of life itself. Breaking the illusion of control is an act of profound liberation. Yet it is one of the most challenging tasks we face as human beings. The illusion of control is deeply embedded in our psyche, reinforced by a society that prizes order, predictability, and mastery over the unknown. From the smallest details of our daily routines to the grand ambitions we set for ourselves, we cling to the belief that we can shape reality to our will. We create plans, build systems, and impose structures in an effort to make life manageable. Yet life itself resists these efforts. It flows unpredictably, defying our attempts to confine it. The more we struggle to control it, the more elusive and chaotic it seems to become. Control, as we often conceive it, is a mirage, a projection of our desire for certainty in an inherently uncertain world. We like to believe that with enough effort, knowledge, or strategy, we can bend reality to our wishes. But this belief blinds us to the true nature of existence. The universe is not a machine to be operated or a puzzle to be solved. It is a dynamic, ever-changing dance of forces that cannot be fully grasped or subdued. To live in harmony with it, we must first break free from the illusion that we can dominate it. This illusion of control manifests in countless ways, from the mundane to the profound. We attempt to control our environments, striving to create comfort and security. We attempt to control other people, shaping their behavior and opinions to align with our desires. Most insidiously, we attempt to control ourselves, suppressing thoughts, emotions, and impulses that we deem unacceptable. While some degree of structure and discipline is necessary for functioning in the world, our obsession with control often leads to frustration, anxiety, and a sense of disconnection. Consider the way we try to manage time. We divide our days into hours and minutes, scheduling every moment in an effort to maximize productivity and efficiency. Yet, no matter how meticulously we plan, time slips through our fingers. Unexpected delays, disruptions, and detours remind us that time is not ours to command. It moves according to its own rhythm, indifferent to our agendas. In trying to control time, we often lose the ability to fully experience it. We become so focused on the future, on what needs to be done, where we need to be, that we forget to inhabit the present moment. The illusion of control also extends to our relationships. We expect others to behave in ways that suit us, and when they don't, we feel betrayed or frustrated. We try to mold the people around us, whether consciously or unconsciously, into versions of themselves that align with our expectations. But human beings are not objects to be manipulated. They are complex, independent entities with their own wills and desires. Our attempts to control them often lead to conflict and disconnection, undermining the very relationships we seek to protect. Even within ourselves, the illusion of control creates tension and struggle. We imagine that we can dictate how we feel, think, and act at all times. We try to suppress emotions that we perceive as negative: anger, sadness, fear, believing that they are signs of weakness or failure. Yet, emotions are not problems to be solved, but signals to be understood. They arise from deep within us, often carrying messages that our conscious minds cannot articulate. By trying to control them, we cut ourselves off from their wisdom and intensify our inner turmoil. Breaking the illusion of control does not mean abandoning all effort or resigning ourselves to chaos. It is not a call to passivity, but to surrender, a surrender not of agency, but of attachment to outcomes. It involves recognizing that while we can influence certain aspects of our lives, we cannot dictate them entirely. Life is a collaborative process, a dance between our intentions and the forces beyond our control. When we stop clinging to the need for certainty, we open ourselves to the possibilities that uncertainty brings. This surrender requires trust in the flow of life, in the inherent wisdom of the universe, and in our own ability to navigate whatever comes our way. It is a leap of faith, a willingness to let go of the reins and allow life to unfold as it will. This does not mean abandoning our goals or aspirations, but approaching them with a sense of openness and adaptability. It means setting intentions without becoming attached to specific outcomes, knowing that the journey is often more important than the destination. Breaking the illusion of control also involves embracing vulnerability. To admit that we are not in control is to acknowledge our own limitations, our dependence on others, and our place within a vast and unpredictable world. This can be frightening as it challenges the ego's desire for dominance and certainty, but it is also profoundly freeing. When we let go of the need to control, we free ourselves from the constant tension and anxiety that control demands. We allow ourselves to be present, to respond to life as it is rather than as we wish it to be. Paradoxically, in breaking the illusion of control, we often discover a deeper sense of power. This is not the power of domination, but the power of presence, the ability to engage fully with life as it unfolds. When we stop resisting the flow of existence, we find that we can move with it, navigating its currents with grace and resilience. We learn to trust our instincts, to adapt to change, and to find meaning in the unpredictable. This is not a relinquishment of strength, but a rediscovery of it, a recognition that true power lies not in controlling the world, but in embracing it. Breaking the illusion of control is an ongoing process, a practice that requires patience, courage, and humility. It is not something that can be achieved overnight, nor is it a goal to be reached once and for all. It is a way of being, a continuous unfolding that invites us to live with greater freedom, authenticity, and connection. It asks us to question our assumptions, to confront our fears, and to open ourselves to the vast, untamed reality of life itself. Living with fierce authenticity is both a challenge and a liberation in a world that often rewards conformity. From the moment we begin to interact with society, we are subtly and overtly taught to prioritize acceptance over individuality, to smooth our edges to fit neatly into the boxes that others have created for us. This conditioning whispers to us that authenticity is risky, that showing the world who we truly are might lead to rejection, criticism, or even isolation. Yet beneath these fears lies a deep and undeniable truth: to live authentically is to live fully. It is to inhabit your existence with a sense of purpose and alignment that cannot be replicated or fabricated. It is to show up in the world as the person you truly are, not the version others expect you to be. Fierce authenticity is not about rebellion for its own sake. It is not about rejecting norms simply because they exist or standing out simply to be different. Instead, it is about integrity, about ensuring that the way you live, speak, and act is aligned with your innermost values, desires, and truths. This alignment is not always easy to achieve, as it often requires peeling away the layers of falsehood and pretense that have been imposed upon us. It demands an unflinching willingness to confront the ways in which we have betrayed ourselves in order to please others or fit in. To live authentically requires courage, for it means stepping away from the safety of masks and facades. These masks can be comforting, providing a sense of control and predictability in social interactions. But they come at a cost. The more we rely on them, the further we drift from our true selves. Over time, the gap between who we are and who we pretend to be becomes a source of inner conflict, manifesting as anxiety, dissatisfaction, or even a sense of hollowness. Fierce authenticity bridges this gap by refusing to compromise the self for the sake of external validation. This path begins with self-awareness. You cannot live authentically if you do not know who you are. This requires deep introspection, a willingness to sit with yourself and ask the difficult questions: what do I truly value? What brings me joy? What am I afraid to admit, even to myself? The answers to these questions often lie buried beneath layers of conditioning, hidden by the expectations of family, society, and culture. Uncovering them is an act of excavation, a process of rediscovering the truths that have been with you all along but were overshadowed by the noise of the external world. Once you begin to uncover these truths, the next step is to live them. This is where fierce authenticity becomes a daily practice, one that requires both bravery and persistence. It means saying no to what doesn't serve you, even when it's uncomfortable. It means pursuing what lights you up, even when it defies logic or convention. It means speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes. Authenticity is not about perfection, it is about presence. It is about showing up as you are, with all your flaws, fears, and contradictions, and trusting that this is enough. Living authentical.